tonight we're here virtually to hold a public meeting associated with and to provide some opportunity for input on some changes that the department has proposed to our importation rule 17.35.7 NMAC. I guess before we get started with the meat of the meeting, I just wanted to go over a few housekeeping items regarding this new format. I have participated in many Zoom calls over the past several months. I have participated in game commission meetings, but this is my first public meeting. So there's a first for everyone, and thank you for your patience as I learn this, and hopefully this goes smoothly. With me tonight is Tristana Bickford. She is our communications director. She is running the Zoom call behind the scenes. She's also managing the attendees, entry into the actual meeting. She's also managing the chat function in the Zoom call. Also, just so you're aware, this Zoom call is being recorded for record-keeping purposes. We have about 2 hours allotted for this meeting. I will have a very brief presentation here in a few minutes, just summarizing the background of the rule, as well as some of the proposed changes, and then means by which you as members of the public can comment on the rule. Normally I have, when I do a public meeting, I have handouts or items that summarize what we're going to do. I do not have those tonight for obvious reasons that we're meeting virtually. But at the end of the meeting, we will provide links to our website where we have an email address that you can send your written comments to, and that's probably the best way of us documenting comments and questions and concerns. And it'll also include a link to our website where you can download a summary of the rule, actual language of the proposed changes that we proposed to the commission about a month ago. As I mentioned before, I'm Chief of Fisheries. The two of the main changes that are in the proposed rule are fisheries related, and so I was tasked with administering these proposed amendments to the rule. I will do the best I can to answer any and all questions associated with the proposal. If I cannot, I can put you in touch with the right people. Again, tonight is really focused on getting input on the proposed language as prepared or proposed to the commission. Let's see, I'm going to look at Tristana for a minute. Is that all of the housekeeping items that we needed to cover?
Yes, that's everything. And I did put the email website to the proposed changes so that people could follow along if they want to. That link is in the chat.
Okay.
And Chad Smith just asked if the recording will be made available, and we can definitely provide a link to it. I believe that Zoom will send an email after the meeting tonight, and then everybody can have that recording from Zoom. But if not, we can make it available.
Great. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen now.
Looks good.
Okay. And so again, this is just a brief presentation of the statutory background of the rule and what we are proposing to the commission. And then, most importantly, I think is the proposed changes as well as the next steps. So the public is well informed about what to anticipate moving forward. There will be other opportunities to ask questions, to provide input, express concerns before the commission. And I will cover that towards the end of the presentation. So starting off with the statutory authority of the rule, the legislature basically stated that it is a misdemeanor to import any live animal, bird, or fish into the state of New Mexico without first obtaining a permit from the Department of Game and Fish. And so this kind of set the framework for how the commission and the department approached importation of animals into the state. And so the next step in that was the development of rules by the Game Commission regarding how to implement that authority that was granted to them by the legislature. And they did this starting off with 19.35.7, which includes different parts of the importation rule. I guess, the most forceful statement regarding importation of animals is that it's unlawful to import any live non-domesticated animal into New Mexico without first obtaining a permit from the department, with the exception of species on the importation list within Group 1. And I'll get into those more in a minute. So then in 19.35.7.10, the commission went on to adopt a rule that directs the department, or the director of the department, to maintain a list of species in 4 different groups. And these are Group 1 through 4. Group 1 I already mentioned, and these are semi-domesticated animals. You don't need a permit for their importation. And these include taxa such as fish commonly used in the aquarium trade, things like that. Group 2 are slightly more, I guess, receive slightly more scrutiny. These are non-domesticated animals that are not considered invasive or dangerous. They don't pose a risk to health or safety of the public or domestic livestock, or native wildlife. Some of these taxa include some of your turtles, frogs, again, in the aquarium trade. Moving on up in I guess, the level of scrutiny that the department reviews importation requests is Group 3. And these are non-domesticated animals that they pose some risk in some circumstances to native wildlife, or in some cases, the health or safety of humans or livestock. But we feel that they are manageable. And examples of this taxa include most of the species of fish that we actively manage for recreational purposes, like channel catfish or largemouth bass and those types of species. And then the final group is Group 4, and that's the highest level of scrutiny that you get from the department. And these include non-domesticated animals that are considered dangerous, they're considered invasive, they're threatened or endangered species. And generally speaking, the commission or the director's list prohibits the introduction of or the importation of those species into New Mexico without a permit and other limited circumstances. So this is just a summary of the other provisions of the importation rule. It includes information about what information you have to provide if you want to import a species into New Mexico. There are provisions for temporary importation into the state for, say, trade shows or for movie sets. There are 2 sections on the importation and I guess designation of fish hatcheries as approved suppliers of fish and fish eggs. There's also a long list of importation conditions if you want to import deer or elk or pronghorn into the state. And finally, there's an appeal process should the director or the commission deny a permit or an application request. So this slide is just a brief summary of the proposed changes from the department to the commission. And I presented these proposals to the commission, I think, at their August 2020 meeting. The first of these is there was a proposal to provide greater consistency of review of importation permits for all species. As some of you may know, right now, if an individual or an entity were interested in importing a carnivore onto private land for some sort of rehabilitation or reintroduction purpose, that requires Game Commission approval. And there's an interest in treating all taxa consistently rather than singling out carnivores. And that could provide greater efficiency in some cases, as well as just a consistency among the levels of review. The next proposal is focused on fish health disease and what disease status a hatchery would have given or would be required to have if they wanted to import fish into New Mexico or fish eggs into New Mexico. Currently, if a hatchery tests positive for bacterial kidney disease or whirling disease, that facility would have to depopulate the entire facility and remove all fish and decontaminate it, which is a laborious and expensive process. We still think that's appropriate for whirling disease, though there's a growing body of evidence that if a hatchery were to test positive for bacterial kidney disease, while we still wouldn't approve an importation during that time, there are other means by which they could manage around that disease and hopefully get to a point where they were no longer testing positive for it. There's also a discrepancy in how the rule treats or requires different testing requirements for whirling disease. There's currently a requirement that you must test all lots of fish or a group of age group of fish. Then there's another provision that says you have to test fish greater than, or the fish that have been exposed to that water source for greater than 10 months. We want to treat that as one, and so essentially you would either have to do 6 fish greater than 6 months or fish that have been exposed to the water source for greater than 10 months, not both. And then there's some other minor formatting changes that are related to the fish or importation rule, as well as a couple clerical errors. So that is all for my presentation as far as the substantive changes. This is just a slide summarizing where we would like you to send your comments. Again, they would be most useful in writing. That way we ensure that they are a part of the written record in order to comply with State Rules Act requirements. There is more information on our website where you can download a summary of the proposed rule, the actual language of the rule, the presentation I gave to the Game Commission last month, as well as we will get this information or this presentation loaded up to that website as well. The next steps in this process, we're still fairly early in the process. We will have another public meeting on September 30th, 2020 at the same time, again by virtual meeting Zoom call at 6 to 8 o'clock p.m. We will be reviewing the comments as they come in on the proposed language. So far, I have not received many comments, and that I should mention that email address goes straight to a repository for the email, but also is linked up to my individual email. So I get to keep tabs on the comments as they come in. And then we will be presenting the proposed language as we're presenting tonight, with potentially some modifications at the Game Commission's October 16th, 2020 meeting. Again, that will be virtually held over Zoom. And then if the tentative plan as of right now is we would be proposing this formally to the Game Commission to seek, I guess, undergo a rulemaking hearing in January of 2021. Let's see. That is all I had. Tristana, I don't know if there's been any questions coming in. I know we received some questions prior to the meeting via email. I would be happy to, again, do the best I can to answer all of them. And others, again, we're trying to get input and concerns expressed, and so we can go ahead and take questions.
So if anybody has a question, please either add them to the chat or raise your hand. Kirk, I think the place to start, Karen emailed us about the questions or messaged us about the questions that she emailed. Do you want to address those first? Do you have
Yes.
those?
I'm sorry, did someone talk?
Sorry, Karen had emailed questions into us, so that might be the best place to start while people are writing their questions down in the chat or raising their hand.
Okay. So the first question I have from Karen is, what is the rationale for removing carnivores from the rule? And I think there's a couple of reasons to do that. Ultimately, the department became part of the cooperating agency agreement last year, I believe. And so we have a greater understanding and involvement in the day-to-day operations of the wolf program. And so that's an opportunity to, I guess, have more information and more input on some of those releases. And so, some of that is just an efficiency sort of situation where there might be a last minute call where a wolf needs to be removed from the wild and sent to Mexico, and they need to put that animal on a private property during the interim. And so that it really, when you get to a commission sort of review, that's difficult to do in a timely manner. And so I think it's, again, treating all taxa, having the same level of review for all taxa, and also from an efficiency standpoint. The next question is, will there be a process that the director must follow to inform the public about carnivore imports? And I think regarding the imports, the director is in routine correspondence with the Fish and Wildlife Service, and the Fish and Wildlife Service ultimately has, I guess, the discretion or the decision making on that. I can foresee a situation where there would definitely be input for the director about those imports, and this doesn't necessarily just apply to wolves. It also could apply to, for example, black-footed ferrets, and wherein there was I believe we did a release over the past couple of years there. And so hopefully that answers that question. Then the last one is, will the public be allowed to provide input on carnivore imports? I think probably the best way to answer that is, again, the department is involved in, or is now a cooperating agency in the wolf program. So part of that would be, there's an annual translocation plan that is developed, and in those cases, there's an opportunity for public input on those. So I think, yes, there would still be an opportunity for public input for carnivore inputs.
I'm not seeing any more raised hands yet, so we can give everybody a minute or two to either raise their hand or oh, but we did have one follow-up question to that, Kirk. What do you mean by cooperating agency?
So there is a wolf reintroduction MOU that has been signed by various agencies and I believe NGOs. I'm not completely sure about that. That would be the cooperating agency, and that we are a part of that agreement regarding wolf reintroductions and wolf management. And I think there's an interest in a variety of different reasons, in particular for the department to try and play a role in some of the better understanding and the responses to wolf depredations from our perspective, and not being sitting I guess on the sidelines on that. I saw another question come through from Carolyn Nelson.
Yes.
I did not see it. Where do I go to?
You can click on the chat button, or I can read it to you. The question is, how do we find the wording for the cooperating agencies?
I am quite certain that we have a copy of it with the department. I suspect it may be on our website, or it may be available on the Fish and Wildlife Service website. I think that we can, if Carolyn is interested in seeing that we could get her a copy of that.
Perfect. I will make a note for that so we can email it to her. I also know that this was addressed at the commission meeting in October last year. And so looking back at under the commission tab on our website, under meetings and agendas, and I believe we have all of the notes and the recordings from that commission meeting on our website and on our YouTube channel. And that might be a good way to clarify when the department became part of that interagency working group again. And let me see. So Carolyn Nelson and Karen Cowan asked if we could send that information to everyone, which I think that we could do that. Aaron Hunt just emailed in. Thank you for hosting this meeting. What, if any, impacts do you foresee for zoos and aquariums working with the Department on Endangered Species Recovery?
Thanks for the question, Aaron. I guess a brief response to that would be I don't foresee any impacts to zoos and aquariums working on endangered species recovery. We work closely with, for example, the biopark in rearing some threatened or endangered fish. I don't think any of the changes that I'm aware of that we're proposing would be affected by this proposal.
Okay. I'm still, Aaron said thank you for that answer, Kirk.
You're welcome.
And I'm still not seeing any hands raised or, oh, I do have two. Hang on, I have another. There we go. Steve asked, he said, I believe there is a moratorium currently regarding the importation of cervids. Can you tell me if the borders will be open soon to importation of cervids that meet proper criteria?
That's from Steve.
Yes.
Steve, I'm going to apologize to you. I don't know the answer to that. And I think Tristan and I, if you want to provide your contact info, Tristan and I can get you an answer to that.
Perfect. And I should have Steve's contact from registering. So I made a note for us to follow up on that for Steve. And then I think you answered this question. Chad Smith, you sent a question in. Can you clarify, did you say NGOs are cooperating agencies?
I need to be careful with that. I do not know exactly who the signatories are on that.
We'll give everybody another few minutes if they have more ideas or more questions pop into their heads. Okay. The next question, Kirk, from Carolyn Nelson. Giving the director's authority, does that take away ranchers' voices?
I guess there's always the opportunity for reaching out to the director to voice your concerns about importations. The review by the commission is certainly a public, I guess, a public situation right now. Ultimately the authority and the decisions on the importation lies with the discretion of the Fish and Wildlife Service. I know there's been some disagreement on that and some litigation associated with that in the past. So, I think it's a change in the rancher's voice. There still is an opportunity for input during that time. As I mentioned previously, there's an annual translocation plan that is vetted annually. And so I think there's an opportunity for input at that time. And I guess I should also add that the current rule, it limits the commission authority or the commission review to just importing to put them on private land. So it doesn't, and those are limited circumstances as I understand it. And so the situation of importing onto public land that commission, that review is still with the director at that time. So this is a fairly limited situation for the importation onto private land.
Okay. Did anybody else have any questions?
There was a hand up from Jessica, I believe.
Yeah, I asked her to raise it. I wanted to make sure that I didn't mess up something on the functions. So I just, nobody had raised their hand. So I just texted her and asked her if she'd put it up really quick. But it worked. So, but anybody else, if you have questions, feel free to raise your hand or type them in the chat, and we can unmute you. I'm not seeing anything, Kirk. I know we have a couple of follow-ups that we can work on tomorrow, and oh, we have one more. Anita emailed and she apologized that she was late, and to clarify that one person will have a decision on wolf issues.
Thank you, Anita. No, I don't think that's part of the proposal. The proposal is to, in limited cases, return or have the authority for approving importation of a wolf on to private land. And so and that would rest with the director at that time. So I think there are a whole lot of other issues involving wolves that would not lie just with the director. This would just be one proposal here.
And a follow-up to that, will the department keep local government appraised of decisions?
A simple answer is yes, I do believe so. And I think that's one of the benefits of the department being formally a part of the program now, is that, you know, we have a better day-to-day understanding of what's going on. And I have experience working with fish in the wolf recovery area, and I think one of the things that we have done a good job is working with local governments in that area, or improving relationships with the local governments in that area. So I think hopefully we would continue that and keep the local government apprised of decisions and how things are progressing.
And Chad Smith asked, he said, has there been situations where an action to allow importation was needed before the director had the ability to go to the commission?
Let me bring that up so I can actually read the question and make sure I can.
It's in the Q&A.
It is my understanding, yes, there have been times where the decision or the need for a decision or direction from the director, I guess it's shorter than the time needed to get to the commission for an answer. How that was resolved, I don't know the answer to that, but I definitely have been told that, you know, this would help with the efficiency of avoiding that situation.
And then one more follow-up with the local governments. There's been some examples now where some of the local counties, the Ketchikan County specifically, has been left out of the loop. One example is the narrow-headed gardener snake being listed.
Okay. You know, I guess, thank you for your comment. I'm not familiar enough to know with what concerns you have with being left out of the loop regarding narrow-headed garter snake. We have commented on critical habitat designations. We have commented, and when I say commented to the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service on it. We have commented on the I guess, critical habitat for another endangered snake in that area or threatened snake in that area. So.
And I just checked on that one specifically on the narrow-headed gardener snake. The comments were accepted through September 10th on that one, so that session just closed. But the State Game Commission is scheduled to hear that on October 16th at the meeting then on that one specifically.
Okay.
And Chad Smith popped up. A couple of more questions came into the Q&A. Would the department be willing to establish a way to communicate with private landowners when permits are approved so neighbors know when importation is taking place near their private property?
It's my understanding we already do that to a certain extent anyway. Having been in the room during conversations about this, there is a consideration for what is the location, what is proposed, and those sorts of discussions. And so I think that's a part of our decision-making process or how we approach it anyway.
And then we have another question in the Q&A from Valerie. And she has a suggestion. I'll let you read that one. It's rather long. While you're looking at it, I'll go ahead and read it, and that way the audio picks it up for the video. It says, why can't the language in the current rule say, in quotes, the State Game Commission must review any permit application for the importation of any carnivore that will be held, possessed, or released on private property for the purpose of recovery, reintroduction, conditioning, establishment or reestablishment in New Mexico. The director shall only issue a department permit in accordance with the Commission's direction following the review of an application submitted under this section of the rule. Even as a CA permit can still go through the Commission so the public can be aware before going to the director.
And I think the answer would be, Valerie, yes. I mean, that is an alternative proposal, and that's why we're here tonight is to hear alternative proposals to what we have proposed. And so thank you, and we'll include that in our comments and discuss it internally, and then come up with whether or not the department wants to continue with the current proposal or modify it as you suggested. Tristana, I would like to go back to Anita's comment, and I think I better understand her statement.
Okay.
You said that they were left out of the loop because of the narrow-headed garter snake moving to endangered, and she was referring to the department's proposal to uplist narrow-headed garter snake under the State Wildlife Conservation Act. And so I guess that proposal was going out during the early phases of COVID and how we interact with the public, and we're learning a lot about how to do Zoom meetings and outreach and that sort of thing. So I appreciate your comment, and I'm sorry if you didn't feel like you were in the loop on that proposal. It seems like in some way you found out about it, whether it was in a timely manner or not, I don't know. It seems like based upon your comment, it was not. And I guess I can just really say that the department is learning in this new virtual environment on how to get the word out. So thank you for your comment. There was another one from Carolyn Nelson. Is there a cooperative agreement for the snake? And I believe she's referring to the narrow-headed garter snake. I am aware of the department participating in some sort of conservation team for the narrow-headed garter snake. I do not know whether they have a formalized conservation agreement or not. And then Karen Cowan asked, can we all get copies of Valerie's alternative proposal? And I think the answer to that, Tristana, you correct me if I'm wrong, but I would say yes.
Yes, and I copied up for our notes for the meeting as well.
Okay. And then Anita just said that she stumbled across the proposal to uplist. So that would be narrow-headed garter snake. So.
And Chad Smith also sent in a question on the Q&A section. Landowners know of current importation because it goes through the commission, through the public process. But if decision is made in a silo, we will not know unless there is a mechanism for that communication. Also, it would make more sense to have an emergency clause that allows the director to make a decision in an emergency situation. Still unclear what would constitute an emergency.
Okay. And Chad, thank you. That's a good point, and we will make that a part of the notes and discuss that alternative proposal internally.
Okay. Does anybody else have any questions or comments that we can discuss here, or would like to raise their hand and be unmuted? Not seeing anything else pop up, Kirk, on this end. What I will do is put the email and the mailing address if people want to send any written comments into the chat, so they have that one more time. And I'm also going to go ahead and put in the link to the importation rule, and so you can see what is being proposed currently. And for anybody that's interested, if you click on the link right below the importation rule, the 2020 draft biennial review is there with information on the narrow-headed gardener snake as well. Not seeing anything else coming on this end, unless you are.
I don't see anything, but let's see. Chad Smith just said, thank you both for this opportunity and look forward to providing input and working with the department through these proposed changes. So.
And thank you guys all for taking the time to join us and your passion about wildlife in New Mexico. We definitely appreciate that.
Yes, I appreciate everybody showing up or joining us virtually. Oh, we got one more.
Yeah.
Has there been a cooperative agreement for wolf before the past couple of years? Yes, that MOU I think has been in place for some time, though the department was not a signatory to it. Okay. So again, I'm scheduled to be here till 8 o'clock. So is Tristana. We're more than willing to be here. I don't see any additional questions coming in. So if we can call the meeting early or we can sit here if there are individuals that don't want to miss anything, if they log off too early. Maybe we can try and address those uncertainties. This is all new to me again with a virtual meeting.
Mhm.
So with everybody in attendance, I think we've got 11 people still here. If we were to call the meeting at 6:40, I'm not sure what time it is.
6:43.
6:43, and just shut down the meeting if folks are okay with that. If not, you can put something in the chat real quick and say you have some more questions. Otherwise, I think we can call it an evening. Philip just said that works. Okay. Well, you guys, thank you again for showing up. Thank you again for being interested in this topic. And if you have any comments, please send them into that email address, and look up our website. And if we don't hear anything else, thank you all. Take care, and we'll see you maybe next week at another public meeting, or maybe the Game Commission meeting virtually in October.